Good afternoon, students. For week 5, let's take a look at locating thesis statements when reading and writing effective thesis statements. So let's recap a little bit about what was done last week. Last week we talked about, and described, what is good writing. Good writing, it requires, a thinking. It involves students revising, expressing ideas clearly, being sure that your writing is directed toward an audience, who's going to be reading it. It also achieves a purpose. And furthermore, it also requires that students practice. And yes, I understand that this is not a writing class, but statistically speaking, reading and writing go hand in hand. And so the better we improve our reading, the better we improve our writing, and vice versa. So I usually have students involved doing both pieces so that you are growing tremendously as the semester goes along. So last week we also brainstormed. We were generating ideas for our topic. I explained and went through a secondary type of generating ideas, not only the brainstorming piece, but also branching, and I gave an example. We organized our ideas on the sample outline that was given inside a Blackboard with the introduction paragraph, body paragraph, and then a conclusion paragraph. Because this class is not so we don't have as much emphasis on the writing piece, I'm not making you write a full out 5-paragraph essay, but this research piece will require that you are able to come up with the main idea, which is back with the generating ideas, and then use that information to be able to write. We described, what is in a body paragraph, so when we do get to that point of writing that body paragraph, you know the components. When you generated main ideas last week about the topic of Greek mythology, students came up with that one main idea, plugged it into their outline, and so next week, when we actually get to that body paragraph, you're going to take a look at writing a topic sentence, which expands on that main idea. You'll also look at supporting sentences or supporting details, which explain and support that main idea. And we'll kind of back and forth a little bit with reading to locate these pieces and writing to understand how to do so. So I gave an example. I also briefly told you that I selected the main idea for myself for my example essay of Olympian gods. Further, students were meant to be able to draft a sample outline using the context of the information that I gave you. This outline is a solid outline that can be used beyond our vocabulary class that we have together. Students were meant to write a grabber sentence, some interesting fact or information, background information about the topic of Greek mythology. And then this week we're going to take a look, and you've already drafted your thesis statement, which is the main point of the whole report, but we are going to focus very specifically on being able to improve that thesis statement. Improving a thesis statement is very instrumental to any English class that you will take in the future. You've got to be able to know what a thesis statement is, you've got to be able to improve upon it, as well as to be able to get it into a final draft so that solidly you can tell your reader what is the main point of the entire report and or essay. So let's focus on that specific concept. A thesis statement, it is the central controlling idea in a writing task. It states the writer's main purpose or their point. So a topic is what the author is writing about, and a thesis is what the author is saying about that topic. It's a viewpoint. So let's keep in mind that letters and emails, they're really not going to have a thesis statement. It's very direct, to the point. Here's what needs to be done. Here's a directive. A short story, very similarly, it's really not going to have a thesis. In contrast to that, it's kind of going to have a theme. Most short stories have a theme, exhibit symbolism, and these pieces will come about as the semester goes on and we'll go into short stories. Specifically, a thesis statement is usually constructed, improved, and finalized for academic writing. So with that being said, whenever you see any academic writing or you see articles that are related to academic writing, you're going to find a thesis statement. And there are two types of thesis statements. One's explicit. It is directly stated in the essay, and it's normally found in the introduction paragraph. And so last week, as we were constructing and rough drafting our introduction paragraph, you explicitly stated what the main point of your whole report was going to be. In contrast to that, an implied thesis statement, it does not have an obvious thesis statement, and unfortunately, and a little bit more difficult, is the fact that it requires the reader to figure it out. You know, how often have we come across a TSI reading passage, or just a reading passage in period, that is an academic writing that you read all the way through it, and you get clues and details and information that is able to kind of imply what's, you know, the whole essay or the whole reading passage is about, but it never directly states. Well, that's on purpose. The reader does that on purpose because what they're trying to do is they're trying to let the reader figure it out rather than just coming right out the door and just saying it. And so it's meant to make the reader think, and you're able to kind of make assumptions as well as, you know, viewpoints that maybe tend more your way, but also you have to use the information and supporting evidence to be able to imply the thesis statement. Yes, I know it's harder, but it just pushes you as a college student to think more beyond, you know, what is legitimately put in front of you. So within this PowerPoint, I'm going to make directives for students to make sure that they reference. Inside of your Blackboard lesson, there is an answer sheet for week 5. So the first task for you as a reader to do, I want you to open up the article which says, "Teach your children the building blocks of finance." I want you to locate the explicit thesis statement that is inside this article. So some steps to be able to do that is you need to preview the text. Read the introductory and conclusion paragraphs. You know, when we were writing in our rough draft, where was your thesis statement? It was in the introduction paragraph. Many authors or many writers, they do the same. Read the entire article or essay. You know, whatever claim of information you found that you think is probably the thesis statement, are there details that are backing up that claim, that are developing and supporting it? In step 4, go back to the claims found in step 2 and evaluate whether any of them, you know, is this my thesis statement, you know, after you've read the entire article. And last, if there is no stated claim, or if there are a few equally important details, you know, the thesis may be implied. Well, I'm going to be very direct with you. With the article that I gave for you to read this week, "Teach Your Children the Building Blocks of Finance," it is an explicit thesis statement. I did not do an implied one in this reading piece because I want to see, can you locate the entire point of the article that I've given you. So once you locate that, I want you to type that thesis statement inside of your answer sheet. So let's go on the flip side of that, an implied thesis statement. Let's look at the image here that's entitled "Education Pays." And this is derived from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and the title of it is "Earnings and Unemployment Rates by Educational Attainment." You know, educational attainment basically means, you know, your degree. So on the left-hand side in the red, you see unemployment rate in 2012 by percentage. And then on the right-hand side, you see median or average weekly earnings in 2012 based off of dollar amount. And so within the very middle of this image, is degrees, and the very top being a doctoral degree down to less than a high school diploma. And so accordingly, there is no thesis statement attached to this image. A reader of this particular image, they have to imply, what is the information telling me? And so what I want you to do is I want you to evaluate this image, and I want you to tell me in your answer sheet, what is this image saying? What is it implying that the point of this image is? So let's move on into improving your own thesis. So a thesis statement is generally written and then it's revised many times. Furthermore, the first draft of your thesis, it's really a working thesis, which means it's good enough to work from, yeah, but you still need to be able to develop it as we go along. So improving a thesis statement, it means making it more specific, which can be done by answering some questions about your topic, which, of course, our topic is Greek mythology. So here are a few questions to help you mold that thesis and continue to improve it. Why is Greek mythology true? What impact will Greek mythology have on other people or things? And who should care about Greek mythology? So some of the answers to these questions can help you be able to improve your own thesis statement as you've already created. So let me give you an example. I pulled the topic of voting. Here's a very poor thesis statement. It says the definition of voting, according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, is to exercise political franchise. And of course the quotations means I pulled it direct from there. So this original created thesis, it's a straight definition of the term. But that's not what I'm looking for. Remember, a thesis statement, it's your interpretation. I want to see, what is your interpretation of Greek mythology. I don't want to see a definition from Merriam-Webster's dictionary. Maybe you could define some pieces of it somewhere else in your research report, but that's not your thesis statement. I want to see how are you interpreting and evaluating, and in your own words, putting this information. So here is a better thesis. It says voting means having a voice. Well, this is much better. But the improvement shows that the writer, still needs to do some work, because now I, as a reader, am slightly confused because I don't really know what having a voice means. It could mean one of many things. And so a continued and improved thesis statement, and the best that's offered here, is voting is much more than a quiet democratic exercise. It's about having a voice in important terms. So this writer was able to, in their own words, being able to define what voting means in their words, and then further tell me, what having a voice means. So it is construed and interpreted in such a way that I know that this particular writer, they thought about it. They put it in their words and were able to tell me. So I want you to practice. I want you to practice with a different topic. Yes, we'll come back to your Greek mythology one, but let's practice just for yourself. So evaluate the working thesis statement below, and it's about the topic of fame. I want you to revise the thesis statement based on criteria that a thesis statement should be. It should be an arguable claim. Not everybody's going to agree with what you have to say, but that doesn't mean that what you have to say isn't important and that it can't be substantiated or supported with evidence. You need to make sure your thesis statement is clear and specifically phrased. Make your ideas clear. You need to make sure that you address whatever the task or the assignment is. And furthermore, I truly, truly do not want a question as your thesis statement. I don't really feel like that is giving the reader the main point of your essay when you have actually taken your topic and construed a question for your reader. So here's the thesis statement, the working thesis statement that I want you to look at. It says, the question is, what is fame? So already you can tell this violates the criteria above. It's a question. So answer the pieces below. What works about this thesis statement? Is there anything in here that works? Elaborate and tell me what works. Elaborate and tell me what is missing or what's unclear about the thesis statement that was given. And then I want you to revise to improve this thesis statement. Rewrite it. Give me something that's better. Give me something that's best. And put it in, remember, it's your interpretation. And be sure to be able to put this information inside of the answer sheet for week 5 that is located in your Blackboard lesson. Alright, so let's shift back after you've done that piece. Go back to your introduction paragraph that you wrote last week. Yes, I know, it's a rough draft, and that's what it's supposed to be. But specifically, take a look at your thesis statement that you made. I want you to improve your thesis statement from what you've learned. I want you to create a solid and concise thesis statement which will further direct your body paragraph and your essay. So, with what you've learned, be able to improve your thesis statement, and be sure to put that information on your answer sheet for week 5 for grading purposes.